Today we want to talk about something that's very troubling in our community. We see it, we see a lack of it throughout our culture. I believe was something that I was lacking, still working on, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are doing the same. Especially we see it in marriages, we see it in households, with parenting. We see it on our jobs, day to day, with our managers, with our peers. And what I'm talking about today, ladies and gentlemen, is lack of effective communication. What does effective communication look like? I'm no guru. I've had some learnings and some training, some additional heavy training on a leadership level. Shout out to my old corporate job, laced me up. Also, the word of God, teaching me things and how to communicate better. When you give, when you learn, share. I like to share information on Respectfully, the podcast. All due respect, never trying to put anybody down. My only mission is to lift my people up. So when you think of effective communication, the first thing that I would like to mention is just checking your spirit. So checking your spirit before you have that hard conversation, whether that's with your spouse, whether it's with your kid. There's times my son may do something that may upset me, and I'll say, okay, don't have that conversation right now. Have it later. You're upset. And that comes with, that's my spirit, man, of course, telling me, hey, it's not a good time. Also, that's emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence, being aware first, aware of yourself, how you're feeling. Then also being aware of how that other person is feeling, and just picking the right time, saying, okay, I've identified that. Let me control my emotions. Maybe we can come back and revisit this conversation later. So that comes with, again, check your spirit. Make sure you're in the right spirit when you have that conversation with your spouse. If you come at her or him throwing blows, more than likely they're going to retaliate and you're going to be throwing blows back and forth, tongue wrestling, that is. First and foremost, we got to check our spirits. When you're talking to somebody, it's hard conversations a lot of times. You may be doing business with somebody, and you don't want to talk to your boss wrong, and you feel like you're wrong if you address them or you say this certain, whatever that conversation entails. Sit back, check your spirit, maybe have a day or two and think on it, pray about it, get your words together, and then come back to that person in the right spirit. And most of the time, if you're coming in a calm, cool, calm, collective spirit, whether that person is offended or not, for the most part, you did your part. You did your due diligence, right? Saying, hey, sorry if I offended you, didn't mean to, but I got to get this off. It's not good for us to hold things in. Something that I've gotten better at, still struggle with. We got to release these things. We got to release what's going on inside to be a better person. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if you're leaving it bottled in, it's going to come out one way or the other. So you do it in the right spirit. Do it when things are on the up and up, and we should be able to get things resolved in a better style. Also, being clear as to what it is that you want. Some of us talk in circles. I got friends, I got homies who talk in circles. I've never been one to talk in circles. I'm kind of straightforward with it. If it doesn't bother me to that capacity, I can brush a lot of stuff off. But some people talk in circles, and that's not good, especially in relationships. If and women are good at drilling us men, right? And trying to get that out of us and asking us these deep, hard questions. And a lot of times we're trying to go in circles. So let's try to avoid the talking in circles. It's only going to help better your communication and be more effective. Also, your tone. First, how did I forget this one? This is probably the first and one of the biggest. Kind of goes with checking that spirit, but that tone. So it's one thing to be passionate about something and you're raising your voice. I get it. But when you're having a hard conversation with a spouse or with a child or somebody, if you're, especially, let's just say your spouse, because y'all equal, right? We're both adults. So anytime you're talking to an adult, and if you're coming in a loud, aggressive tone, your results probably won't be the best, depending on the type of individual that you're dealing with. So checking tone is really key, bringing it down. I like to practice being cool, calm, and collected. Not always, right? But if I'm talking to somebody, I try to give respect because I want respect. I need it and I demand it. So I try to make sure I'm pretty well balanced, stating what it is that I need from that person, whether it's personal and especially business. My wife would probably say I'm more fluid in business communication than I am in my personal life. So tone is everything, guys. Make sure we're addressing a person with the right tone. One of the things, this is for my fellas, this works for me. So again, I'm being transparent and just sharing. When me and my wife may have disputes in the household and things escalate, shout out to my white brothers on the movies, always seeing them leave the house saying, honey, I need to get some air. that works for me. I'm not one who's argumentative. I don't like to go back and forth when we're steaming and everybody's fired up. Really, I have yet to really see that get any good resolutions when two people are angry and screaming at the top of their lungs in the household. I haven't really seen it. You may have, and you guys, it may work for you, but works for me. And I'm just sharing it with some of my brothers who might be in the household, may be facing something. Even some women. Leave the house, leave that area, go get you some air, woosah, take a ride. Don't go too far, don't go get in no trouble, but leave out, go get some air, come back. Usually it works if you're dealing with a level-headed person. Everybody's not level headed, and that's just the reality. For the most part, when people calm down and and then bring it back, the results 75-80% will be better. Not to say there's still not things to be discussed and communicated, but for the most part, leaving and letting things die down and diffusing. That's worked for me in the past, so I'm just sharing it with you guys. Good luck. And here's another one: listening to understand, not respond. A lot of people say that, but one thing I see in our culture, we're no harm. A lot of times when a lot of people are talking and just conversing, friends and family, you got that person talking over or can't wait. Soon as you're done, they're going into them and they're relating, so that's all good, being relatable. But again, when you're having deep conversations in depth, it's probably good to listen to understand versus just ready to come out and respond. Because in all that I get in trying to get an understanding, it's really worked for myself, and I'm sure others would say the same. Just trying to understand that person because we come up differently. A lot of us have different backgrounds, and those upbringings really matter. Depending on how your household was ran, how your family, your parents function, and how you were able to function and maneuver in the household. There's really a huge difference in a lot of us. And so just trying to listen and understand, sometimes it might not make sense, but at least you're doing your part. Just listen and say, okay, and trying to understand. Ladies love for us to reiterate back everything they said, right? Which is like, all right, I shouldn't have to do that, but I understand. I get it. Sometimes, depending on who your lady is, you may have to go in depth and reiterate everything. Good luck to you, my brother. But again, listen, all jokes aside, listening to understand. And sometimes, I'll say this too. I heard one of the pastors mention this, and sometimes, somebody may have just won the lottery or, got a new promotion, bought a new house or whatever, and they're calling you and they're excited. How many of us do this? Somebody calls you with some good news and they're going off and they're so excited. And as soon as they share, you say, oh, yeah, because yeah, last week I got such and such and such and such. So you're kind of stealing a thunder, stealing a joy. Even though you're relating and you're trying to be engaged in the conversation, sometimes just let people celebrate and bask in their accomplishments and be excited. It's not your turn right now. I mean, and we're all guilty of it. So again, these are just tools to help us communicate more effectively. Again, that person calls you, allow them to go in and express their accomplishments or whatever it is that they're happy about and finding that joy in, and just find a way to listen to them and just celebrate with them. It's not all about you coming in to tell what happened with you last week because they're sharing their story. They were first. It's not your turn. Anyway, listening to understand, not respond, helps with effectively communicating, really trying to grasp in communication. Often you don't hear people really focusing on listening. The word of God tells us that's why we have two ears, one mouth. We should listen more than we speak. And I believe if we practiced that and did that, the world would be a better place. Everybody's so anxious to get in and talk and share their news versus listening. And I'm a student. I try to really be a student, especially if I'm around people and I don't know the business or the industry or whatever it is they're talking about. If you're not if that ain't your lane, just be a student. Be a student at best and just soak it up. You don't have to jump and engage in every conversation. I know the feeling of not knowing how to get in small talk. When I was at a job, I really wasn't privy to sports. I didn't really watch sports that much growing up. I'm familiar with boxing, but I really didn't watch basketball and football to that capacity, right? I was running the streets, just being transparent. And so as I got older and got in these locker rooms, working out downstairs in the gyms, I would hear all these conversations about basketball and, what happened over the weekend. And I would kind of feel like, wow, I really can't even engage. So what did I do? I'm an intentional person. I started to kind of get familiar just with little topics. If I'm looking at the highlights or looking at some on ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just there was a part of my development and growth. Just wanting to be able to engage and have some small talk in those areas. Yeah. And here's another big one. I'm a real stiffer when it comes to this. Stop interrupting. Ladies, can I finish? Can I finish? I'm just saying, we gotta, if I'm allowing you to talk, if we're having an argument, debate, whatever, if I'm allowing you to talk, let me get my 20, 15, 20 solid minutes and then I'm done. I'm not really long winded. So after I get mines out, boom, you can have the floor. You can do it, not all night, but it's you. Please stop interrupting. That doesn't get us anywhere. It only escalates situations and could possibly lead to other things. So let's be respectful. Let your man talk. He lets you talk. And let's try to get to a common resolution. Not interrupting. I can't stand to be interrupted. I ain't even gonna hold you. I can't stand it. Even though, I get it, friends, everybody be excited, certain conversations, certain dialogue, but I'm very big on not being interrupted. Another pet peeve, I remember sitting in meetings. I can't stand when people are having sidebar conversations and someone's up talking. That just, it cringes me. Like, how rude. Be respectful. But we see that. I see it in adults, and I be shocked. Like, wow. Now I get a short little conversation. Hey, a little whisper. This happened. But I'm talking to somebody may be up doing a presentation, and you and your friend over here having a whole whispering conversation on and on and on. That is so rude. Well, let's be more respectful. Let's cut out the sidebar conversations and focus on the panelist or the presenter. Can we please? Respectfully. Again, tools to effective communication, not interrupting, killing the sidebar conversations, being focused. Because if you were standing up and you were talking, giving a presentation, you will want people to give you their utmost attention. So just keep that in mind. Treat others how you want to be treated. And make sure that we're acknowledging, listening, and educating. One thing I love, I had a situation where you may order something off Amazon or somewhere and the part comes in damaged, and you call the company. And a lot of times you can kind of feel whether that person is really listening or acknowledging you or just being condescending, right? If you have one of those customer service jobs or you're dealing with someone and you're doing business, try to make sure that you're at least acknowledging their pain point, because that goes a long way when someone acknowledges, and lets you know, hey, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. Let me see what I could do for you. Not what I can't do for you. Here's what I can do for you. So this is going to my customer service people and business owners. It's a great best practice to just always make sure you're listening, acknowledging, and educating a person on what they can do for you. Today in 2025, you call and it's hard to get a live human being, and then you may get someone overseas. And so when you get someone that really just these days, that acknowledges you and, hey, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. I'd be glad to assist. Let me see what I can do for you and educate you on the process. These days, it's hard to get educated on anything. You call in and a lot of people are just very dry. Everybody's working from home. And we've just gotten away from that good customer service. Effective communication is listening, acknowledging the problem, right? And of course, educating that person on the process. I know when we were when we were buying our new home, our lender and realtor would send us certain type of jargon. And I'm like, okay, what does CPE mean? Or, whatever. Like, you can't just expect people to know what those acronyms mean. Like, that's rude. And it could just be me, right? If I'm bugging, let me know, y'all. But these just some tools I wanted to share about communicating effectively, having that emotional intelligence, listening, acknowledging, making sure we're not interrupting and listening to understand, and not wanting to share your story when they're sharing theirs. Celebrate with that person, let them share their wins. How is your tone? And checking your spirit, right? And coming to that individual in the right spirit, and I promise you'll get better results. This your boy, IG. Respectfully, the podcast. See y'all soon.